Hello and welcome to the 12th Planet Destiny podcast. Today I am joined by the full cast. We have Briar Rabbit, we have Tefty, we even dragged Sir Wallen out from the rock that he was living under to get out here. We also have some special guests here. Pope Bear, why don't you tell us about some stuff that's going on with you and who might be sitting next to you?
Well, today I had a great opportunity to come and visit Bungie up here in Bellevue, Washington. And I'm sitting here with Deej, the community manager, and we're enjoying some lemonade.
And holding hands.
We're holding hands as well.
Ooh. Ooh. Well, awesome. Deej, thank you so much for actually coming on to this podcast with this strange crew of people that we have here.
Wouldn't have it any other way. Thanks for having me. Thanks for being strange.
It's what makes a community great. So, starting off, I wanted to just kind of ask you, Deej, for those of you who don't know what it is that you do there, what are your duties at Bungie? And just kind of take us through a normal day for you.
I wouldn't say that any of my days have been normal since late in 2011 when I picked up my roots in Chicago and came out here to Bellevue, Washington. Running away from home to go join the circus was how I described it to my family. But I am your friendly neighborhood community manager. That essentially means that communications between Bungie and the player base is my responsibility. I talk to the people that play Destiny about what's up at Bungie. I facilitate communications in two directions. I make sure that the players of Destiny know what's going on with us, what we think about our game, what we think about them. I also take the things that our players say, wherever they can be found to be saying it, either on our forum or on social media or on external websites like Reddit or private clan sites or websites like your sites. And I take those pearls of feedback and insight and rage and joy, and I share them with the developers just so that we have a good perspective as to what people are saying about this game, the people who play the game, the people who own the game, how they feel about it, what they like, what they don't like, what they want to change, what they want to stay exactly the same. This doesn't necessarily mean that, the community gets to author our to-do list. It means that they are part of our process. It means that they are a very important influence on the way we make decisions about the future of Destiny. I also, as you guys know, like to facilitate communication between the players themselves. A lot of times this can mean that I'm introducing different community outlets to the player base so that they can be aware of you and the service that you provide to the community and start to pay attention to you so that when I'm not around to speak to them, you can also entertain them with your own news, your own insights, your own analysis. So it's really about keeping the conversation about Destiny lively and to keep it rolling, if you will. Whether it's Bungie talking to the player or the player talking to Bungie or the player talking to the player. And that involves any manner of using the social network or using the Bungie blog or even using partners like, Activision or PlayStation or any other number of people to make sure that we're getting the word out and that people who want to know about Destiny and people who want to know about Bungie have the information that they need to make informed decisions about how they spend their strange coins or how they upgrade their weapons or how they spend their evening.
Awesome. Well, it sounds like communication is the key here for you, and you definitely accomplish that very well. You have a very succinct way of explaining things.
That's not a popular opinion.
I got to tell you, I got a chance to take a look at Deej's desk today, and he's got a monitor dedicated to just his Twitter feeds, right? And from from at Bungie, at Deej, and it was amazing to sit there and watch that. Like, it's like a stock market ticker feed, just comments from the community coming in, and how much time he actually spends reading that and being present. He may not have the opportunity to comment back to all of those, but it's something that's always there and present on his desk, and I was really impressed by that.
Yeah. It's funny you compare it to the stock market because a lot of times you can even measure things that way. Mm-hmm. Player sentiment is rising on the advent of Update 112, but the market for Glimmer is falling out, bottoming out with nothing left to spend it on.
That's true.
Yeah, it's I found over the past 7 months that listening can be a lot more effective than engaging directly. There are absolutely moments when you need to speak to the community. You need to acknowledge what they're saying. You either need to validate their concerns or their opinions. But I find a lot of times that the community having a conversation with itself, a topic that is able to trend by virtue of the fact that it's a good idea instead of by virtue of the fact that Bungie's here and Bungie's commenting now, so let's all talk directly to Bungie. I don't want to be an absentee landlord, and I don't want Bungie to be perceived as having gone silent, but I find that the feedback can be so much more constructive when it's an engaged player who is putting their own name on the topic and providing some sincere feedback, right, and other people showing up to say, I agree with that, and I wish it was something that Bungie did. Or even somebody showing up and saying, you know what, this is not a good idea. I don't think it would help the game. I actually think it would ruin my specific player experience. Seeing players interact with each other is so much more telling than when we say something and everyone shows up to, by virtue of our visibility or the fact that we're Bungie, to say, whatever comes to mind. I think when the player leads the conversation and when the player responds to another player, what you get is a lot more honest and a lot more grassroots. So we are always listening. And the ironic thing is, people on Reddit or people on Bungie.net will say, Deej, please make sure that Bungie sees this. By the time a YouTube video's trending, we've seen it. Yeah. I'm not the only person at Bungie who's paying attention to the community.
Oh, no. I'm walking around and seeing, there's 500, 600 desks with monitors, and just walking through the studio today, I'm looking at people's wallpaper on their desktops and stuff, and looking over shoulders. And I don't know if I was surprised, but it felt good to see, as I was walking by, a lot of the people here at the studio had the Destiny subreddit up, or the forums, and they were just up on their desks and their screens, and you're walking around, and I'm not kidding you, Patrick. It's just like they're all. It was there everywhere. Like somebody was taking a break, eating a sandwich or drinking something, and they're reading the Destiny subreddit. So it was awesome.
That's awesome.
Deej, can you give any specific examples of how things have changed, in Destiny because of feedback?
Yeah, I really don't even need to. If you read the Bungie Weekly Update, I'm trying to interview more and more members of the team right now, and.
Thank you for doing that, by the way. That's so awesome to see developers actually speaking to the community like that.
Yeah, and I think, these guys deserve recognition for the work that they do. And I also like to humanize the development process. It's very easy for people out there to think that I am Bungie, to think that I invented Bungie, I invented Destiny. After I got done inventing Halo, I came over here and I invented Destiny. That couldn't be further from the truth. I am not a guy who works on the game. I do not do art. I do not write code. I do not balance the Crucible. What I do is, like I said, I facilitate communication. But if you, take a look at some of the people who have sounded off in the Bungie Weekly Update lately, they are very adamant about the fact that they use player feedback in how they make their decisions. So be it, Kevin Yanis, who is working with his fellow designers on the Crucible team to redesign the way ammo works. I mean, Kevin Yanis says himself, that, when he goes through and takes a look at the way the Crucible works, his direct quote from the Bungie Weekly Update is, the competitive multiplayer team is constantly listening to feedback, be it from people in our studio or players on the forums and social media. Daniel Hansen would say the same thing. He's one of the guys on the user interface team who did some of the work on locking your items, and we always see people saying these things, telling these stories. Like one recurring story we keep seeing involves legendary and exotic gear getting accidentally dismantled by errant pets and overenthusiastic children. When somebody photoshops together a new vision of how they would be able to check their Crucible or their faction reputation wherever life finds them, the user interface sees that, and they say, oh man, if only we could develop this game using Photoshop, we could do amazing things. But these people have these ideas and they have these urges and they have these desires for easier access to information, and that's what the UI team is all about, is providing players with the feedback and the tools they need to understand the game and navigate the game. So I think that the Bungie team is more engaged in their own game than they have been in years. It is actually pretty fascinating to me that there are so many people on the Bungie team who are actively playing Destiny as much as anyone else out there, and intimately acquainted with the story experience. I mean, Pope, you understand that firsthand,
Absolutely.
having taken so many of them through the raid, which is really why you're up here, is because you become friends with a lot of people in the studio. So, as part of your vacation, to pay us a visit and, kind of be, entreated
and that's the crazy thing. It's like, I realized how many Bungie employees play the game. There's 600 of them, and they play the game every night, but you wouldn't know because they don't advertise that they don't have the flaming blue Hayabusa helmet on or a recon helmet. Yeah. It's a lot of them playing the game every night, and I started realizing how many Bungie people I was actually playing with when they just started telling me, oh yeah, and I work at Bungie, and I'm like, are you kidding me? I've been playing with you for months, and I didn't know that. And so it's crazy because I think that that's their way of getting the unique experience when they go out into the community and they play with people, and they don't tell them they're Bungie employees. They just hear their honest, brutal feedback. And that comes back to the studio. And I think you're absolutely right, Deej. I mean, that's exactly what why I was excited to come up here, because I've made friends with a bunch of guys here, and they're like, you got to come up and see the studio, and it's amazing, right?
Yeah. So if you're listening to this podcast, you may have played with a Bungie employee and just never known it. If you enter,
not everyone has that underscore BNG at the end of the name.
Absolutely
to
not.
note that they're from Bungie.
No, and I do that because I like interactions with people in the community. If someone waves at me in the tower, I'll invite them to my fire team, and I'll take them on a strike. On one occasion, I even accepted a dare, and I was like, all right, I will go now raid with 5 total strangers.
Sure.
Which is not really a smart thing to do.
Not recommended.
Not recommended, yeah. It worked out well. Fortunately, 3 hours later, I wasn't saying, oh boy, am I tired, guys. Maybe we'll beat the Templar another time. It all worked out. But I know that there are a lot of Bungie guys who, prefer to stay incognito. And if you've ever, seen somebody on your strike team, enter the team chat channel and jumped in there and had a good conversation with somebody, that could have been a Bungie employee. That could have been studio co-founder Jason Jones. I mean, there is a voracious appetite here for honest and sincere feedback on the part of the player. And, if you can imagine investing, 2 or 3 or 5 or 7 years of your life thinking about a game, making artwork for a game, polishing an environment in a game, writing code for a game. By the time you were finished with it, by the time you had seen it from every single possible angle throughout different iterations in the development process, you might be so sick of it that you just want to ship it, move it off your desk, and go do something else. But what we found is that people keep coming back to Destiny inside the studio again and again and again because they love playing it. And that acquaints them with the player experience in a way that really helps them make educated decisions as to where we should invest our time. So when you think about all of the different things that we're packing into 1.1.2, 7 months out of the gate here, I think we've, if I may say so, I think we've hit a better stride where we can really anticipate the player. We can make better guesses as to what's going to make them happy and what they need. And I think update 1.1.2 is really going to be one of the more feedback-centered updates that we've seen hit the game.
Definitely.
Lot of
just from the weekly updates that you've been putting out are huge.
Yeah, I mean, it's vault space, right? It's raid fixes. It's we were able to pluck a lot of the items off the top of the wish lists here and say, we're going to give you this, we're going to give you this.
And I remember that. I mean, I remember a while back you directed the community to a couple places where they could provide feedback and where Bungie would be listening, and from that they developed an action item list, and it's just cool to see that list being checked off.
Yeah, I remember the day that a producer from the live team sent me an email and said, you have 1 hour and I want you to list off the top 10 things that the community absolutely has to have and the top 10 things that the community would really like to have following on the heels of that. Now, some of these things are things that we wouldn't be able to do without completely, razing the game to the ground and rebuilding it from the ground up with a different structure. Or
sparrow races.
Right.
Yes. Always a popular theme of conversation. Yes. And whenever somebody tells me that they want sparrow races, I tell them the story about my clan way back in Halo 2 when we created the Tour de Halo and hosted our own Warthog races just with gentlemen's agreements, to take a left on that rock, go through that valley, take the riverbed back home, where there's a will, there's a way, and in many respects our community can be just as creative as we ever are.
And look at good friends of mine over at the Sparrow Racing League. They put on races every week, and some of them now are for money. So they have some pretty good. They have some, if you think you're fast, look up the Sparrow Racing League. I think they do a race every week, and it's just a ton of fun. They've learned to use the raid Vault of Glass entry area on Venus as the way of getting 6 people in, and then teams of 2 racing or 2 teams of 3. And it's actually a lot of fun.
Please note that Bungie does not endorse gambling in any variety. Destiny the game should not be used as a casino.
No betting involved.
Other form of illegal betting.
No betting. You just, if you win the race, you get a prize.
That sounds like gambling.
All right. It's not an official Bungie thing. It's Sparrow Racing League, and check them out.
Tefty, I think you had a question.
Oh yeah, I was going to ask about the Bungie, the overall vibe at the studio over whether or not you guys think hoarding weapons and keeping all of them, or dismantling and moving on, is like a thing, and you guys talk about that, like, because obviously vault space is a big reason for it, is because we're going to get all these weapons coming in the future with the next expansion, and we want to keep them. We don't want to dismantle other stuff that we really like, So I was wondering, what's the vibe at the studio around that?
Yeah, it's stormy and contentious. You know what happens when a hot weather front and a cold weather front collide, right?
Tornadoes.
Yes, sir. Arriving at a general consensus for just about anything at Bungie can be just as difficult as it would be to do so on the forum. We have our own internal email distribution lists at Bungie where you can talk about whatever comes to mind, or you can say, hey, I've got all these, I've got these old collections of, interesting geek things that I want to sell, and of course there's one just for Destiny, just for the people who go home every night and play Destiny. And the debates that rage on those email strings are kind of a microcosm, sort of our tempest in a teapot. A lot of times those email threads can look exactly like our forum, or exactly like, the back and forth that you would see on a social network. There are people at Bungie that, want to provoke players to make interesting choices about who they want to be, to create a situation where players are inspired to embrace a combat specialty. There are other people at Bungie who, they have that pack rat hoarding mentality. People who want 100% completion of any game they play. All achievements unlocked. Check out my gamer score. Check out my PlayStation trophies. Mm-hmm. So there will always be dueling opinions on that sort of thing. The Vault Space expansion is a step in the right direction. I am looking forward to talking about House of Wolves gear upgrade paths and some of the ramifications that will have for different players. We're always taking a look at how a Guardian in our game behaves. We're always taking a look at what things are important to them, and in a lot of ways, knowing each other and knowing ourselves in the game is a great pathway toward understanding what this thing is. People give us a lot of credit. People give us credit as understanding everything about our game. And you have to remember, Destiny was built on a brand new game engine. To build a game engine and then to launch a game at the same time is extremely challenging. You're essentially building a house, and then someone stops by the construction site and says, check this out. here's a much better hammer. It's like, oh yeah, look at that. This one actually has a metal head on the top of it. It's like this poor guy was hammering nails with nothing but a wood stick. So we basically were creating a game engine, creating a game, delving into open world activity design for the first time, delving into long tail progression systems for the first time. Certainly we didn't invent any of these things, but we combined a lot of these different gameplay elements in a new and interesting way. And all of that was done with a test sampling of the people that worked here, or the small groups of people that we were able to bring in under non-disclosure to participate in a test with us in our lab. So, Destiny was a grand experiment. And we released it into the wild, and millions of people flocked to that banner and started to play that game, and that was when the learning began for us.
Deej, if I may, I want to ask a question regarding the storyline, really, of the game. And my channel is based primarily on just the lore and expansion of the lore and an interpretation of the lore. And in games like, Dark Souls and in other games, you see a really fantastic fan service and fan following of the story, even if it isn't presented in the standard, cookie cutter way, fed to you on a silver platter. My question is that, as the Dark Below has had an interesting change in the way story is delivered, is that going to be sort of the plan moving forward? Because I know you guys hired John Ryan, if I'm not mistaken, guy over at Neversoft, to be an editor or one of the newer writers. And I'm really curious to see is how do you guys expand upon the universe of Destiny in its current state?
That sounds like a 5-part question if I'm listening carefully.
Sorry.
But what I can tell you is no, it's all right. It's all right. There's a new story to tell in the House of Wolves. I look to the community to tell me if it satisfies in terms of how we're expanding our approach. There are some new writers on staff here. At the same time, we still have some of the people who led the charge in creating fiction for Destiny. Imagining this world from every single angle. Imagining all of the different combatants in the world of Destiny and all of their various backstories. John Ryan's here to help us keep things straight. He's here to, edit some of the work that's being done. There are many different people here to create fiction or write dialogue, or there's different types of writers. There's people who imagine a scenario, and then there's people who actually flesh it out with all of the things that get said. There's people who do the big pie in the sky thinking, like, what if there was a liquefied race of people that were contained in this walking form, this robotic form, and they all shared one mind, and it was contained in this data milk, and then there are the other people who would write the ghosts dialogue to describe, the Vex in the scene in which they get revealed. So it sort of happens in many different levels. In terms of how we expand on that stuff, it's really difficult for me to talk about it without spoiling those things. And whenever you're talking about story, the ability to delight and surprise is really important. So that's one of those questions I'd have to put back on you and say, after the House of Wolves comes out, why don't you tell me what you think our ability is for expanding the story? And maybe we can circle back, as we love to say in the conference rooms. Let's put a pin in it and circle back. And
I think it's fair.
But I think the conversation about the Destiny story is definitely one that will continue for a long time. And I hope that conversation evolves as more and more episodes of Destiny give us more and more things to contemplate. Because with so many things with the version of Destiny that we launched in September, we were just sort of kicking open the door, right?
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember who asked the question, but what aspect or part of the game, this is a personal question, what aspect or part of the game do you actually enjoy and play the most? And what aspect do you think could actually be improved on, in what ways?
Oh, God. I think everybody can look at their favorite aspect of Destiny and say, my favorite aspect of Destiny could be improved. I spend a lot of time in the Crucible. I spend a lot of time doing the things in Destiny that are the most social. I actually love sort of a free-form approach to Destiny, and Pope can vouch for me on this. It's really difficult to get me to hunker down and do something like a Nightfall Strike or a weekly heroic, because I want to focus on the people that I'm spending time with. My favorite thing to do in the tower is to grab a fistful of bounties, kick it out to orbit, and say, where can we complete most of these bounties? And then, the next thing you know, we're on Mars, and, we're just jumping our sparrows off of some bluffs and catching some air and doing some flips.
I think that's the most fun that I've had hanging out with you has been on patrol.
Yeah.
Just like shooting the shit and doing patrols.
Shooting the shit and shooting the cabal at the same time.
At the same time.
Telling old clan war stories, talking about the
Absolutely.
drama that, players create when they come together and create their own societies, and those societies go to war with each other, and those societies form, bonds of alliance with each other. And honestly, the game becomes, for me personally, always the game becomes a venue where I can go and hang out with people I like. So bounties and patrols for me are really fascinating, because it kind of reminds me of, like my old love for Grand Theft Auto, where I could just get out there into this expansive environment and do whatever I want to do. That's how the game really can feel different. I had been out and about in the world enjoying myself one night, and Pope started playing with me, and I was a little tipsy, and I remember telling Pope,
I don't like where this is going.
you could ask me anything you want, but I'm just here to drive my sparrow. And I didn't fire a single shot for about 2 hours. I just drove my sparrow and enjoyed my sparrow.
I think you got a lot of bounties done that night.
Yeah, no, I got nothing done. I accomplished nothing. Like any of the tower vendors.
I did like all the patrols. I did like you probably got 4 bounties done, but didn't shoot a bullet.
Oh yeah, just by virtue of keeping the right company. Yeah, sure. Drag me through some bounties, bro. I don't care. I would have gotten back to the tower, and they would have looked at me like, you're utterly worthless. I'm going, and I'm doing. I pick up a bounty, and I got to go get a guy. Do something, and then I'm on my way to go finish the patrol mission. And here comes Deej, like doing flips over like this very serious moment where I'm trying to kill the main guy, to get the bounty done, and he's doing woohoo. Yep, exactly. And I would fall off, and by then my super would have charged up. So whoever knocked me off my bike would be like, "You get a Nova bomb." Aside from that, I do play a lot of Crucible. If I am interested in interacting with the community, over the course of 2 hours, I can interact with dozens and dozens of people in the community through the Crucible. Whereas if I go on a raid, I get to interact with 5 of them. Raids are awesome. I don't need to sell raids. The Destiny community loves their raids. The Crucible is very interesting to me because it's an extension of a lot of the other ways in which I've connected really emotionally to games, be it playing Big Team Battle in Halo, or playing Hardcore Search and Destroy in any number of Call of Duty games, or playing Rush in several Battlefield games. I've always been interested in playing against, sentient opponents, living, breathing combatants. It's very satisfying to me to know that if I make a kill, there's someone on the other end of that experience who is, wincing in the dark of their own game room. Call me sadistic. I call myself social. You can label me however you want. It's been done before. So, to be honest about the second part of your question, how can the Crucible be improved? I've actually had some really interesting conversations with the Crucible designers over the past couple of days, understanding what they wanted to say about their ammo crate shift. And I admitted to Kevin, point blank, that, pardon my French, but I am a shotgun whore. I love my shotguns, and
were you lucky enough to get a Fell Winter's Lie?
No.
Oof.
Fell Winter's Lie is not about luck. Fell Winter's Lie is about marrying yourself to Lord Saladin for days and days and days.
So the Salad Man, he knows how to do it.
I did not commit to the Salad Man that week, so I have no Fell Winter's Lie, but I have a hide and seek. I have a secret handshake. I have
Found Verdict?
I have a Found Verdict.
Yeah.
I have...
Secret Handshake and Found Verdict are just as good, honestly.
They're nasty, yeah. And now I have a universal remote, so I can be all shotgun all the time.
Yeah.
And I admitted to them that I never really had to think a lot about the green boxes. You could even grab green ammo at a clip. On a sprint, I can just sort of reach down and snatch ammo out of a green box.
Right.
So they're actually making design choices now that make me think a little bit more about my shotgun moments.
Sure.
They're actually going to provoke me to get rid of my Red Death or my Suros and equip that universal remote so that I can enjoy a shotgun combat style in a close quarters fighting space.
Sure.
And that's what they're saying. They're like, we want to inspire and provoke you to make interesting decisions about who you are in this game. And I welcome that. I welcome a challenge. Like all shotgun all the time actually becomes boring. And yes, I feel bad about myself because I'm not really trying. All I'm doing is running through doors and blasting people. And look at that. There's some more green ammo. Yes, I'll take that. So now that they're going to make that a little bit more scarce, I'm going to have to choose those moments more carefully.
You're a warlock, aren't you?
Uh-huh.
Do you use blink?
No.
No, you do not use blink.
I do not use blink.
Okay.
No.
So the combination of blink and shotgun isn't your go-to.
No. I like to sort of loft over the battlefield, because I also like to sort of like hover over someone and nova bomb down, or even be able to sort of jump up in the air and and glide through the air and get recon on the battlefield too. So if I'm being honest about the Crucible, I also receive an enormous amount of feedback from Crucible warriors who screenshot the post-game Carnage report and say the worst guy in the team got a Gjallarhorn again.
Right.
I
think I have roughly around 50 screenshots that I could send your way.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
So at Deej, right?
Yep. At Deej_BNG.
Right.
Send all of your Crucible rebukes directly to me on Twitter.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like I watch the cascade of tweets at Bungie and at Deej, and and just from the people that I follow, and there is a certain breed of gamer that wants a better Crucible reward system. Right. I can tell you that I don't need to tell the Crucible design team that they're aware of these things, and these are the things that we think about for future releases of the game.
With Crucible sort of on the table, I had another question, sort of regarding the competitive Destiny scene and its implementation, because we've seen on some of the community highlights, we've seen you pull in some of the quote unquote competitive players. We've seen Ninja, who's a pro Halo player, on there, and with the foundation of Halo sort of like in your backyard in a way, is Destiny in your mind, does it have the ability to become like an esports title, a legitimate competitor up there in the field being showcased at ESL or UMG or MLG or anything like that?
Yeah, it's a hard future to predict. I would certainly welcome it. I think we would have to build in the features that would support that sort of thing.
Right.
I think your average esport player, your average Halo pro says you need to strip the supers out of this game in order for it to be competitive.
It's very true.
I don't know if I agree with that. I think the esport. I think the esportsman chooses their sport. And if you try to create a game saying we're going to make an esport, it's like, well, good luck. If your game isn't fun, and if people don't care about what happens in the arena in your game, and if people aren't interested in your game enough to really care about who's the best, then you're not going to have an esport. So step number one is to make a game that's fun, that people want to play, where people really care about who lives and dies. I think we've done that.
Right.
Yeah, I agree.
In terms of enabling it with an arena construct, that is a question for the future. And when it comes to that sort of thing, instead of backing the team into a corner and making a promise that they might not want to keep, all I can do is say there's really no telling what the future may hold.
Right.
That's
the
fair.
fact that
I
we're
think
inviting people like
fair.
Ninja and Triple Rec to come and hang out on our Twitch channel with us is pretty indicative of the fact that we like that breed of gamer. We were always interested in the fact that Halo sort of engendered and embraced the MLG phenomenon. In terms of what we do with Destiny, it's always fair to remind yourself that it's a very different game from Halo. It's a very different team that is creating Destiny, and there's a very different design philosophy at work here. I think there's enormous potential there, but there are people much more engaged and much more intelligent from a design perspective than me who are at the helm of this title, and I follow their lead in terms of blazing a trail toward where the future of Destiny will live. But I really appreciate that question.
I'm satisfied with that answer. That is to be 100% fair, not to brown nose you. That's probably more transparency than a lot of developers and community managers will give regarding a question like that. So that right there is good for me. I'm good with that.
Custom games.
I'm sure that's like 50% of your Crucible thing is like, hey, so how about them custom games? Get some of them. You get that Forge mode.
Yep. Frequent piece of feedback. But when you take a look at the full nation of Destiny players, there's a very equal divide between people who like bounties and people who like strikes and people who like raids and people who do story missions and people who are playing the Crucible. When you take a look at the Halo nation, the people who are vocal and the people who are online, they were a very competitive, multiplayer-focused group. The Destiny community is far, far more diverse. And certainly there were people out there who were speed-running campaign missions over and over and over again. But the people who played the most Halo over the longest period of time,
PvP.
They were from PvP. Yeah, they were guys like Pope and I. I created an entire community of my own. I created a clan. I created a consortium of clans, a sort of a United Nations or a NATO of clans. And they were all PvP clans. There was no let's get together and speed run a campaign mission separately and then come together and talk about what happened. There were people that did that independently. But if you were online and you were talking about Halo and you were joining a clan and debating Halo on a forum, it was a very PvP experience. And we've all seen Destiny become a very different thing. So there are a lot more things to consider when we think about where the game may go in the future.
Mm-hmm. Hey, Briar, I haven't heard from you yet. You had a question for Deej?
We did. We actually had a really good community question from Bernsey. He wanted to know, do you guys over at Bungie think that The Dark Below was a success, and is there room for any improvement?
At one point in time today, I was in a meeting, and somebody was up at the whiteboard, and they were talking about a very specific element of their job. And they said, what we're doing right now is a step in the right direction, but I'm still not happy. And I shrugged my shoulders, and I said, when do we ever find someone at Bungie who's happy? And that's not to say that people aren't happy to work here, because people come in here every day and they kill themselves to make this stuff happen. This is the most jaded crew that I've ever known. This is the most difficult group of perfectionists that I've ever worked with. Hardest thing to do at Bungie is to get someone to accept a compliment. Like, dude, I'm playing so much Crucible lately. It's so awesome. I love my Nova Bomb. Red Death has made the Crucible so cool for me again. And they'll just shrug their shoulders and they're like, there's a lot of things we need to do better there. I'm like, just say thank you. Just say thank you and let me say you're welcome, So to answer your question, there's always room for improvement. The Dark Below was something that we put a lot of work into very soon after launch. There were things that we had yet to learn a lot about in terms of the player base. I think The Dark Below was a much better offering in terms of telling a story in Destiny.
Yeah, Eris voice acting alone was awesome.
Yeah, Morla did a really great job there, and the fact that Eris encapsulated the entire experience. Yeah. So when you met Eris and started grinding her bounties, and when you completed her missions, and when you went on that strike, by the time that you were invading the Hellmouth to participate in Crota's End,
you knew why you were there.
Yes, and it felt like the culmination of an experience.
Right.
Whereas I think you can take a look at the Vault of Glass, and you can identify the fact that the Vault of Glass was developed in parallel to the rest of the game. And it is very much sort of a parallel experience to the Destiny story arc. The things that Vault of Glass aficionados know about the story, sort of the meta-fiction behind the Vault of Glass doesn't have a lot to do with some of the things that are discussed in other Destiny story missions. So the fact that The Dark Below was a unified narrative, and the fact that all of the different things that you did in The Dark Below sort of complemented each other and supplemented each other was a step in the right direction. That said, I'm even more excited about some of the cool things we're doing in the House of Wolves, and I'm eager to begin that conversation. I'm as eager to begin that conversation as the people are in our community for us to begin it. And that was the feedback that I saw today when I posted the Bungie Weekly Update. I would say if I summed up the basic tone in one sentence, it was good thinking in the Crucible, kind of cool to put my helmet on in the tower, glad I'm not going to dismantle my favorite item by accident again, where the hell is the release date for the House of Wolves? I'm just sitting there and shrugging, and it's like, I like to make people happy. You know, I like to see people smile.
Sure.
I like a pleased tone of voice more than shouting and anger. I'd love to come out and just, tell them all about the House of Wolves. But I know that there are better ways to do that than me writing a sentence on a blog. So we've got some fun things that we're planning to begin that conversation. And if you can hang in there, that conversation is going to begin soon.
That's nice to hear as well.
Well, I think that very tone speaks to, if you look at like 2014 in like just the entire industry, you see a lot of like rush titles and things that aren't finished. But, the fact that you guys are in a way, and this is what I've been talking about with my group of friends, is you guys are kind of taking your time, not purposely, but just so that you at least want to make sure that you get it as right as you can and you're faithful in its presentation. I think that right there speaks more than just giving it to us because we demand it or the community wants it or the community's bored for whatever reason. I'd rather play an experience that has a lot of depth to it than give something, every month that is kind of shallow.
And I can tell you that Bungie will always err on the side of depriving you of something that isn't good enough rather than limp something out because we feel like you expect it.
Yeah. I think it's a good company philosophy, even if you do get hated for it occasionally,
I mean, just look at Valve. Half-Life 3 still isn't even a confirmed thing.
Well, I think that's what a good company will do. They're going to take it on the chin, and they're going to make sure that what they're putting out is what they would want to play.
I mean, the old mantra, we make games we want to play. That there's a lot of truths behind that. First of all, we play the shit out of our games in development. We play our games for the sake of functionality. We play our games for the sake of usability. We play our games to see if the art looks right. We play our games to make sure that the Crucible balance is good. It's not something that we create in a vacuum and limp out the door and hope that people like it. Like when a game gets out the door, it has been played into the ground by Bungie, which is why I'm surprised that so many people here still play it, because we played a ton of Destiny before it came out. It got to the point where I was traveling so much to support the launch of the game, like Bungie was sending me all over the place. I was like, by this time last year, I'd been to Europe twice already. And I kept coming home and they kept telling me, oh yeah, your Warlock's dead. You have to, there's a new build of the game. So start another Warlock, eyes up, Guardian. You're going to see a lot of things that you're not going to understand. I'm like, oh God. It's like I'm fighting my way through the wall of Cosmodrome again. And it kind of got to the point where I was like, you know what? I need to play this game with the community when it comes out. And I don't want to be burnt. So I'm going to kind of like wait. At this point, I'm going to wait until we ship the game. Because I want to be fresh.
So I got a question.
Yeah.
How was it? How did you guys internally test endgame progression? Because I think about this because I've invested easily 1,400, 1,500 hours into it on the Xbox One alone. And I've just now accumulated all the exotics. And I don't know how that's possible in a testing environment to simulate those 1,400 hours.
Mm-hmm. No, it's
you know what I mean? As an end game progression.
There is no way in a test environment to simulate 1,400 in uninterrupted hours in the same build of the same game. Because, like I said, we were constantly rebooting our own progression because, hey, there's a new build of the game that came out. Destiny evolved so rapidly and so frequently, and you're playing the game and then all of a sudden, oh my God, look, people are dancing in our game. What the hell's that all about? And the entire studio has a shared collective, emotional crisis. Like, is this good or not? Is this our game? Like, does this ruin the, immersive, heroic themes of our game? This silly dancing,
Best decision ever. I love it. I wish every game had dancing.
And I can't watch a single combat montage created by the community without like a little moment of victory dancing.
Sure. There's nothing that says I love you like dancing on somebody's corpse when you've killed them in PvP.
Yeah, I'd rather you dance than squat. I'd rather.
I find it more offensive actually. When they
there is I think there's a female warlock or female awoken bow that is just the right pretentiousness.
Oh yeah,
to just really people.
Yep.
So I made my warlock an awoken female just for the bow. She does this bow that in the kill cam, it's just It's just the right. It's so much better than
Yeah.
teabagging.
It's very theatrical. I mean, it's like you're literally taking a bow, you know,
Right.
like as if the whole world is applauding you for killing that person.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'll be right here when
Yep.
you respawn and
Yep.
try to come back, and I'll kill you again.
Yep. I get a lot of the wave, especially if they're aware that they're fighting against me, and when they kill me, I see them in the kill cam waving at me. I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, I had an opportunity to see that when you were playing with Invigorate.
Yeah.
You were in the kill cam a lot, in the death cam a lot.
Yeah, I appreciate you noticing that.
Yeah,
That was
a
the
lot.
most exhausting 2 hours of my fucking life, dude.
My friend actually has a video out on YouTube, and it's just the one clip from when he actually got against you. He sniped you through a wall or something, and then he just runs up and teabags you.
Yeah.
And you know what? Nobody else does that to him.
No.
Nobody.
There was one kid who actually made a really nice video where he was kind of like saying like Deej was a good sport for coming out and allowing some of the best players of Destiny to kick his ass so that we could all earn an emblem, you know? And I was like, this is someone who understands it. But I came away from that night like, that was so stupid. It's no mistake that for the past several Bungie bounties I've
I saw that.
conscripted warriors from the PvP testing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, hey, who wants to get famous tonight?
Yeah.
Yeah. Where we were talking about something important, and
endgame progression.
endgame
testing.
progression testing. Yeah. So that's not to say that we didn't test the game, but this is definitely one of those moments where we said, we're going to create a game that we hope will keep people entertained over a very long timeline. We have no idea how long. We have no idea how many of them there will be, but there is no substitute for releasing a game that millions and millions of people will play for months and months than just doing that. So it's a leap of faith. You know, you create your systems, you create your game, you hope for the best, you release it into the wild, and then you make a conscious decision to adapt to the player once you meet them. All of them. And beyond our wildest imaginations, the fact that we've released statistics, I don't know what the exact statistics are, but I'm hedging my bets by a wide margin if I say that 15 million players have picked up Destiny and given it a try, and that there are still millions of unique players every day, every month, every week, and also the amount of people who are coming to Bungie.net and reading our news and engaging on our forums and inspecting their guardians. If you had told us about the engagement rates for this game this time last year before we released it, we would have been shocked, with a big smile on our face, of course, but we would have been shocked. And, some of that shock has been something to adapt to over the course of the past 6 months and really learn about the players of these games and say, who are they? What turns them on? What makes them mad? What will keep them happy over a long timeline? What will drive them away tomorrow? And to make the right decisions in terms of, what goes into update 112, what goes into update 120. And that's the next conversation that we start having. If you're paying attention to the cadence of the Bungie Weekly Update, you can imagine that right after 111 landed and everyone installed it, we started talking about 112. And once you install 112, we'll start talking about update 120, which is the House of Wolves.
Right.
Yeah. That's the most exciting thing is we know that like in the coming weeks when 112 comes out, House of Wolves is right around the corner from there for the most part. So it's something huge to look forward to.
We haven't officially dated it yet, but yeah, that's
Yeah.
the next thing
You
that
mean
we'll
you're
have
not
to talk
gonna
about.
you're not gonna announce the date right here on the podcast?
No, like
No.
I said, better, more theatrical things.
Aw.
Dropping the Deej
I
bomb.
love the sound of my own voice, but I'm not going to use it to reveal the release of our next product.
Aw.
I tried,
Well,
Patrick.
I thank you for at least trying. A bit of an odd question. You'd be surprised how big of an issue this is in the comments section on all of our YouTube videos, but it's the pronunciation of Gjallarhorn, Gjallarhorn, or Gatlahorn. I don't know if you actually saw, like, our fifth podcast, we brought in someone who was a native speaker of wherever they spoke. Iceland.
Yeah.
Okay.
Um,
No, it's,
and it's actually something called Gatlahorn. And like personally to me, I say it 20 different ways. But around the studio, or just you personally, do you have like an official stance on it, on how you'd like to pronounce it?
I'm certainly no linguist. I'm not an expert on languages, but to the best of my understanding, in Nordic languages, the J does produce a Y sound, which is why, when asked, I usually tell people that the correct pronunciation of the weapon that you're referring to is Gjallarhorn.
Nailed it.
Love it.
Gjallarhorn. And you're supposed to belabor the Y sound too. So like say it with me, gents. Gjallarhorn.
Gjallarhorn.
There you go.
Is that the one with the wolf pack rounds?
Yes.
Yes, that's the one.
You're an educator. What would you say someone in your school would teach the students?
I don't think we would be teaching Nordic languages at my school. I mean, I think we should offer them, but I think that's I'm going to go with that. Gjallarhorn.
It's good.
Did I get it wrong?
It's numerous syllables. The first syllable being gudge.
Gudge.
Gudge. The second syllable being ye.
Ye.
And then Gjallarhorn.
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 Okay.
There you go.
Got it.
Happy to help.
Okay. We're never going to hear the end of this in the comments section.
And then a month later, somebody's like, "It's Gjallarhorn."
Yeah. I just pronounce it dismantle it because I have a Thunderlord.
When did your Thunderlord drop? I know that's something.
Ask Dado. I don't actually remember the right day, but I was glad that he was there as a witness because there's always accusations that Bungie guys can have whatever they want in the game, and so when the Gjallarhorn did drop, I thought, oh man. I was like, Dado. He's like, I saw it. I witnessed it. You can say my name anytime you want. I was playing with Dado and Leopard Stealth, and and I
Did you get it from Crucible or from
did.
PvE
It just
rewards?
dropped into my. I think it was Crucible.
Were you at the bottom of the leaderboard?
Always.
Mm-hmm. So you're more likely to get the.
I don't know. Yeah, there's no likelihood of anything. But
Yeah, you heard it first. Bottom stats. Yeah. Bottom kills get you.
I probably don't need to make that point because we already talked about my Invigorate nightmare. But yeah, as much as I love Crucible, I never claimed to be fantastic at it. I never claimed to be. My beast mode is not really active ever.
You enjoy it though, so I mean,
yep,
it's still fun.
Yep.
Exactly.
Yeah, I love the team dynamic, and I've got people in my clan that like to reassure me that like, dude, you're a force magnifier. You keep us focused on the objective, and I'm like, thanks, guys.
It's a kind way of saying, you're why we're trying to do so good.
Yep.
Tefty, did you have another question from the list?
Yeah. Let's see. Conjure says, "What do you guys do outside of Destiny?"
God, we play Destiny.
Yeah.
I always feel guilty. I like to go. I like to take my wife out for dinner. We'll go to like wineries around, the state of Washington. State of Washington's a beautiful place to hang. So we can drive our car onto a boat, and the boat takes you to like a different island, and then you can drive your car.
Friday Harbor.
Island. Yeah, exactly. Or we'll go to Bainbridge, or we'll go out to the Salish Lodge where they film Twin Peaks. We like to get out and see the mountains and see the trees. And then at the end of the weekend, after I filled myself up with wine and good food, I'll go to Facebook and I'll see that a lot of the guys that I worked with like went hiking to the top of a mountain, or they went skiing that weekend, and then I feel guilty. I feel like a sedentary loser. There's so many awesome ways to get outside here in the state of Washington. And people say, it rains all the time. But if you can get over that and put on a hoodie, you can do some pretty amazing things out here. So there's even a climbing wall at Bungie to keep people sharp in the off season, because people like to get out and climb, and they like to get out and ski or hike or, walk their dogs. It really is kind of an outdoor lifestyle out here. And a lot of people at Bungie enjoy that sort of thing.
So I have a community question here from Travis Diamond, and he asks, what are your thoughts on trading if it was to happen? And he asks, do you think it would break the game? And he also asks, do you think a trading system for Destiny would work?
I think put into place in the right way, a trading system for Destiny could work. Whether or not we want people to do that sort of thing is for other people to decide. The trading system is a frequent piece of feedback. Somebody who has 3 of something and knows somebody who wants 1 of something, or whoever that person is on the other side of that arrangement more frequently, is always asking for a trading system. The thing about Destiny, and you guys understand this, and you can probably already anticipate what I'm about to say, this is about your own personal rewards. This is about you know, those moments on Twitch where somebody finally gets that Gjallarhorn that dropped for them, you know, and how Gjallarhorn, exactly.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
You know, those moments of elation and personal triumph. And,
I
you know,
remember when I got mine.
yeah, exactly.
It was 31 days of playtime
Yeah.
into the game when it dropped, and I ran around. I was in a raid, and I literally dropped my controller and my headset flew off, and I ran around my house screaming like a little girl for like 20 minutes. And I'm secure in my manlyhood to admit that I was more excited about that than a lot of things going on right now. So it nearly, I really wanted to be one of those guys that every time there was a tough spot in the game. So no, don't worry, I got my Gjallarhorn, or Gjallarhorn. So, yeah, so I know what you're talking about there.
Yeah, and anybody who has the thing that they coveted has a great story about how happy they were when they finally got it. That's a good point. Anybody who doesn't have the thing that they covet is probably sitting here and thinking that I'm a jerk.
Right.
So the trading system is. The bad thing about a trading system is that it kind of deflates that moment.
Sure.
The good thing about a trading system is it does strengthen the bonds that gamers can share with each other.
Right.
So, what do you do? I can tell you this. I'm glad I don't have the job at Bungie where I have to figure out the right answer to that question. Because these are such complicated issues and they have such sweeping impact on the player experience of millions of people. So we'll let... I'm not even going to say their names because I'm not going to laser them as targets.
Sure.
Could a trading system in Destiny work? Sure. Could a trading system completely deflate this game and have people saying, "Yeah, I remember when this game was interesting and people couldn't just give you shit"?
Mm-hmm.
I've played games before where I was able to walk into a space and a member of my clan could say, "Oh, hey, let's equip you to play this game."
Right.
And then, here's this, take this, you need that. I didn't really understand any of these things. I didn't understand what it took to earn them. I didn't appreciate what it took to, upgrade them. I didn't really even understand what those gifts did in terms of, placing me in the food chain of the combat sandbox. All I knew is that I was just playing a game with my friends at that point. There was good and there was bad in that moment, and
trading ruined my experience of Borderlands.
Oh, really?
Right.
Yeah.
Same for me.
I was playing the game and enjoying it very much, working through the progression, and I met some guys.
Yeah.
And that were on their 5th or 6th or 7th character.
Yeah.
And they were great guys, and they handed me a bunch of stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't realize what all they had given me, but they're way above my level. And by the time I maxed out my character, I realized that I had lost that whole part of that experience. And so I think I understand exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, like that when I used to constantly run Vaulted Glass, help people out with that. There was this kid who was just elated that he got the Vex Mytho class on his first run, and the rest of us were like, "Hey, lucky little SOB." But at that same time, it's like when we finally got that, we were just like that kid. We were screaming at the top of our lungs. We were so happy to finally get that, and it would suck to take that experience away from the player. And at the same time, it does suck when, I put out a rage video of me getting 8 icebreakers within the first, 2 months of the game. I'm like, why can't I get something that I can use? Or why can't I give this to someone else?
Well, see, you guys get it. You're smart enough to answer these questions for yourself. You don't really even need me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, hold up. I just want to think about some thoughts real quick or say some thoughts I've been thinking about the subject. It seems like exotics and raid weapons and armor. Seems like those would be the best things to lock to an account. But if I had something to choose to trade, I would actually really appreciate trading Vanguard gear or Vanguard weapons specifically, not armor, because there's how many times maybe somebody's like, "Oh, it'd be great if I had another NITC with explosive rounds and maybe third eye or something like that." and they could trade that with a secret handshake that they don't want anymore. That would be an interesting.
You know what,
system.
dude?
And I don't
I'd
think it would
give you
break
my
the
hes
endgame
and
progression.
vengeance any day of the week before I'd part with my Satalian rapier. So to each his own. Some of my favorite weapons, some of my favorite items in the Destiny sandbox can be bought off the shelf in the tower. My Deviant Gravity A is bathed in blood. Absolutely bathed in blood.
As
That
it
gun
should
has
be.
been a
It's good.
wrought
It's a
iron
good one.
workhorse since this game came out. I actually attribute the fact that I am a Dead Orbit devoutee because I love heavy guns. I remember the day that the weapon designer here at Bungie said, the heavy machine gun has got to be belt fed. And I interrupted him and I said, I just started working here and I don't know you, but I completely agree and I'm so glad you said that. And he looked at me like I was a crazy person, like who gives a shit about this stuff that much? But coming from Battlefield, and Call of Duty, Call of Duty World at War, I used the FG and the MG on the same class. In Battlefield, the SAW, the M249 was my go-to, and the idea that there would be a belt-fed heavy machine gun in Destiny made me so happy. And, when I walked into the tower, I walked up to every single vendor, like, who here has the best belt-fed heavy machine gun? And just by the stat bars alone, I'm like, Deviant Gravity A.
Yeah.
And I looked at Iraq Jalal, and I'm like, all right, you and me, brother. And then when I realized it was voiced by Peter Stormare, I'm like, this is
yeah.
fate,
This is it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you like the Against All Odds?
I don't have a lot of experience with Against All Odds yet. I get killed by it a lot.
It's pretty beastly.
Yep.
You'd convert, honestly, if you get Against All Odds, get the one that one of us have with like the proper rolls on it. You just be like, well, Rock Jalad later. I'm gonna go talk to the Crucible robot a little bit more.
That's a bold statement.
See, that's what I'm saying
No.
though. If somebody had a perfect Against All Odds, but they had duplicates, I was like, I've got this Fellwinter's Lie that I don't need. That'd be a great trade, and it wouldn't necessarily be game breaking to the progression or the end game, where exotics and raid gear would definitely break
Well,
progression.
I'm almost curious about the like if, for example, like I have my favorite heavy machine gun is the Mjolnir's hammer, right? And from the Iron Banner. For me, the fire rate of that, the impact, it suits my play style. Now, that being able to roll it and being able to get the stat roll I wanted was key to my enjoyment of the game. I don't think that I would want. I mean, I hear what you're saying, but I think that like trading as a method of getting the different guns, I think that still goes back to that idea of like, well, where did you go to get that? Where did you go to get the story?
Pope Bear gave it to me.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, well, then you must suck if someone has to give your guns to you. Yeah. I mean, if you think, whenever somebody says, oh, where'd you get that? Did you buy it from Xur? It's like, yeah, I bought it from Xur. I played weekly heroic strikes. I saved my coins.
That's
I
right.
faced off against vile strike bosses, and I spent my strange coins, and I bought it from Xur. Like, what did you do? It's like,
I sat in the corner and shot at a vile raid boss from the safety of my cheese spot.
That is that I'm going to tell you right now that I don't. I'm the biggest person that I always talk against cheesing stuff, but this Nightfall had me cowering in the corner.
What do you guys actually think about cheesing in strikes or raids? Obviously, the game goes through tons of testing. And are you guys always surprised with like the different cheesing methods that come in for certain fights?
Well, I mean, I'm never surprised because I'm always telling people if there's an exploit, the community will find it. If there's a way to exploit our game, the community is going to find a way. Life finds a way. I had a math teacher.
Murphy's Law 2.0.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's chaos theory actually. Ian Malcolm, and we balance the philosophies of being devoted to the quality of our own product with serving the player. There are some exploits in our game that ruin the game. There are some exploits in our game that would ruin other players' experiences. We like to create something that's challenging. We like to create something that's stable. We like to create something that is of a high quality that is worthy of our ambition and worthy of the effort that we put into it. I know that some of the different cheese fixes have not been popular, but at the same time, I know the people who put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into creating these experiences. And if they want to go back to the drawing board and make sure that the wall is solid because the wall was supposed to be solid, then who are we to tell them not to? Again, when you ask me what is the philosophy at Bungie about, we can't even talk about flavors of candy. There are hundreds and hundreds of people here. They're all deeply engaged, passionate people. The day when it's easy to arrive at a general consensus about anything at Bungie, I think we've lost something that makes us great. It's the debate. It's the battle for the best idea. It's the argument. It's the impassioned conversations. You walk into the kitchen and you hear people still arguing about Destiny. This is what keeps these people thinking about this game and dreaming about how it can be better, and then putting in the extra hours to make sure that you can do something as important as play the Vault of Glass and know that the teleports are going to be more stable, or put your helmet on in the tower. Something as non-trivial, something as important as Vault of Glass fixes, and something as trivial as putting your helmet on in the tower. Some things we do defend the quality of the experience. Some things we do just make it a little bit more fun.
Yeah, that's fair. Do you act just as a personal question? Have you ever cheesed an encounter?
Can you answer that question?
Okay. All right.
Throwing hard rights.
So there's a gamer on my friends list. He's been a member of my Halo clan for many, many years. We needed a 6th for Iron Banner. And so we, jumped him into our party. And I said, hey, come on, we're going to go play Crucible. He goes, no, real quick. Guys, real quick. I need to finish the raid. And we were like, no, we're going to go play Iron Banner. He goes, okay, well then I'm not going to come. I'm going to find somebody to play the raid with me. I'm going to go to an LFG site. I need to finish this raid before the reset. And we're like, dude, we'd all finished the raid. We didn't want to play the raid again. We wanted to play Iron Banner. And this was our last chance before the reset. So we jumped into the Vault of Glass, and as soon as it started, this was way before the patch with the baby bumpers, we saw Atheon, and I was a warlock, had a couple of other warlocks in the party. Started throwing Nova. Started throwing Nova at his feet. He started backing over to the corner, and I'm like, all right, fine. If we're doing this, then I at least want to see it firsthand. And so we jumped up and we started throwing Nova at his feet. Now, everybody that was doing this had already completed the raid this week, so no loot was gained by the people who did it. And then the guy in my friends list who was insisting that we finish the raid with his checkpoint goes, no, don't do it that way. And then just then he falls off the edge and goes down. He was like, I wanted to learn how to do that. And we were like, next week, bro, you can learn how to do that next week. So it was in many ways a victimless crime, not counting the person on my friends list, but we're still friends, so that's okay. So I guess this is kind of my version of I did not inhale. I got cheesed the raid one time. It was on foreign soil, and I was in college, and I did not gain any loot. So,
did he get a Vex?
No, I don't really think he got much of anything, which is fine. And that guy's still raiding, so it's not like we ruined Destiny or raids for him.
Yep.
But that's me being honest instead of sitting here and being like, nope, never cheesed a raid, never ever.
Well, I appreciate the honesty. A question for everyone here, and we'll just start out with Deej. What are the origins of your gamer tag?
My name is David James. So growing up, I was DJ, and like any nickname, it gets boiled down in a crucible to a single syllable. So Deej, David James, DJ, Deej, and BNG should be obvious.
Pope Bear, you want to?
Yeah. My nickname has been around for a really long time. Since I can remember back in elementary school. So my first name is John Paul, and at that time he was the Pope.
Yes, he was.
And my last name is Baloo, like the Jungle Book. So Baloo the Bear.
Oh my God!
So my name is Pope Bear.
Right there in front of me the whole time.
Yeah. So it's I actually got that nickname from friends of mine in elementary school when we were hand drawing the Legend of Zelda map at lunch. We would
on graph paper.
Paper, and because there was no maps of the Legend of Zelda, like we had no like internet to find out where stuff was, so we broke out the map in a way that we all came back together, and we all had secret or code names so that if we wouldn't get in trouble by the teachers because we were talking about video games. I don't know, but so we all had our own. We all made up our own nicknames and. For the group, and mine was Pope Bear.
Wow, I applaud the dedication to keep Pope Bear from elementary school until now.
I can remember all the way back when I first got it. It was definitely in elementary school, and it was the day after we had a massive food fight because I was really angry that my version of the Legend of Zelda map had gotten spaghetti on it. So yeah.
Wally, what? Let's go.
So I used to be scumbag Wally back in my Battlefield days, and used to be a quote unquote competitive player, and I carried a very negative connotation around with me. I was a very sort of a trash talker. And the Wally name came from a guy in the Swedish Succession Wars back in like the 1400s named Wallenstein, who held off this fort to the death with like 400 men against 10,000, right? So he died, and I always thought that was really cool. And then when Destiny came out, I started doing Destiny content, and I decided I should rebrand myself if I wanted to build networking, because scumbag in front of your name is probably not professional. So I became Sir Wallen instead.
That's way more professional, that's for sure.
Way more professional.
Tefty?
Sure, yeah. So my middle name is Teft, actually. And it's a family name. My grandfather his first name was Teft, and my great-great-grandfather was Teft, and there's like a Teft Hill in Massachusetts that I'm related to through a couple hundred years of lineage and all that. So a friend of mine started calling me Tefty, and then Tefty Teft, and it just kind of stuck, and I was like, yeah, I should stick with Tefty Teft as a gamer tag. So that's what it is.
It's an odd middle name. I've never heard that one before.
Yeah, a lot of people get it autocorrected to theft. instead of T-E-F-T, it's T-H-E-F, so it's funny. A lot of people like message me and be like, hey, theft. So, yeah.
And Briar?
I was playing Quake, and I needed a screen name for Quake, or Quake 2. I can't even remember which one it was. And for some reason, the story of the rabbit that was kind of getting chased through the briar patch and came up to the cliff and couldn't decide to jump off the cliff or go back into the briar patch, and I couldn't remember if it was Peter Rabbit or the Brer Rabbit. The Brer Rabbit sounded cooler, but was harder to spell, so I just went with Briar Rabbit.
And I guess the current one I'm using, Holtzman, is it's a character from the novel Dune. It's from like one small passage in there, and he invented fold space travel. And I think only one person from the comment section has ever actually figured that part out. They all think my last name's Holtzman, which is apparently really popular in this part of the country.
Dune's old school, man. You're talking, that's old.
Yeah.
Who's the Quizox?
He is the Quizox Anorak. How could this be?
So I take it you guys have seen the David Lynch film?
No, not at all. No. Yeah.
The reason I chose Holtzman as well is I only had like 3 videotapes that I would watch when growing up, and one was like they were all recorded on the same night off TNT or something by my parents. One was Indiana Jones, the other was Ghostbusters, and then for some reason Dune was in there as well. And I just loved that.
Really?
So
How old were you?
I watched that. Oh God, I watched it pretty much every day from 1988 when I was born until 2000 when we got a DVD
So
player.
as a child, do you think you were affected by the heart plug being pulled?
Yeah, man, that's heavy shit.
No, because I read the book pretty early on as
my
well. I was like,
goodness.
that's not in the book.
Oh my God.
That doesn't matter.
Okay.
It's not canon.
It explains
Yeah.
so much.
Oh, man.
First of all, I really want to thank Deej. Thank you so much for joining us on this one, and Pope Bear, thanks for wrangling Deej into actually doing this.
Actually, it wasn't hard at all. I was trying to leave to go back to the hotel room, and he chased me down the hall and said, "Hey, don't we get to do a podcast?" And so Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for listening. This has been Patrick Casey with Planet Destiny.
Sir Wallen with Planet Destiny.
Briar Rabbit.
This has been Tefty Teft.
And Pope Bear.
And I'm Deej from Bungie. Please don't gamble in our video game.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next week.